Well, since my hands are completely inked up, I'll just continue to be messy and sort out some pen nibs. What I've done is I've started two little trays: stub calligraphy, draw, and round. And what that means is, well, stub is obvious. Calligraphy is nice, sharp copper plate kind of a nib. Draw and round are pens that have a nice rounded point that can sort of go in many different directions and won't snag the paper when people are drawing. And this one and might be good for lefties. So I'm just trying to sort out, I don't care what the pen looks like, I'm just trying to put the nib in the right location, in the right box. Now this one, this looks, ignore that one, that looks like the nib was re-tipped and it seems very lumpy. Where's my loop? This one, manifold nib. Manifold nibs were made for making carbon copies, rigid nibs. You could press down really hard on these things and they would, and these are, in my mind right now, the least interesting nibs because they really, even with a lot of pressure, they don't flex very much. And there's no character to the nib. You know, well, this one has a little bit of character, so what's good about it? Well, it's a manifold nib and it can sort of go backwards, so I'll put that in my rounded thing. This might be good for a lefty. Might be good for drawing if you really like pressing down. So that'll go over there. What is this nib? This nib, if you look at it, it looks like it had been bent at one point, but has been re-bent back, perhaps by me, perhaps by someone else. And it would be good for a drawer, I think. It has a nice rubbery feel to it. You can push back on it a little bit. The fine is not fine enough for a calligrapher, so that will go here. What's in this pen? Nothing. It's an empty one. I'm looking for empty ones because I've got lots of empty nibs. This is another empty one. You know, I do this all the time. I sort out pens, I put them in the right bins, and then they get mixed around by me or by friends of mine that come over and try nibs out, and then I end up having to do this all over again. But what I'm going to try to do is keep them separate. Now, anyone would love this nib. Even if you hate nibs, you'll love this nib because look, how can you not like it? So what's wrong with it? Why isn't this in a pen and in my hands or someone else's hands? Is there something wrong? No. There's nothing wrong with this nib. So I will try to... This is one of those nibs that would be good for either a calligrapher or a drawer. It's not... the fine isn't fine enough for a calligrapher to do some work with. They would find it too loud. But if they were doing name tags, let's say they were doing a name tag and the paper was a dark or a craft paper, something that was not white or off-white, but actually kind of dark, to use a nib like this, because the fines are sort of thick and the thick gets really thick, that would be. Now why is this not fitting into any of these pens? What is going on here? Maybe that's why it's not in a pen, because it seems it's tight in this one. Is that a crack? Is that why this? Yeah, there's a little crack right there. So this goes into my last legs thing, which is here. These are pen nibs that are somewhat damaged, and this one, for example, I'll just draw what this nib looks like. Close-up of this nib shows so the camera can see it. God damn it. Has a crack coming down like that, which makes it extra flexible. It also has a crack coming up there. So somewhere down the line, this nib was crammed into a pen that it wasn't supposed to go into, and this part broke, and someone might have pressed down really too hard and that cracked. So the fissure it's never going to get any better. Could have it welded, yes, but at some point this crack will continue, and that crack, and this pen might last for another 20 years without it having a problem. But the other pen that I had, the one I just was trying, that was so nice, it has a crack that goes this way. So this tine is weaker than that tine, so it's actually a little bit hard to control because of that. It splays unevenly, and it's just something that's a little harder to control. So that was what was wrong with that one. That's why it wasn't in a pen. What's wrong with this pen? A friend of mine I'd see him at a pen show, and he'd pick up a pen of mine and he'd say, "What's wrong with it?" Just don't give me the hard sell. Just tell me what's wrong with it. And chances are, yes, there's always something wrong with any pen. It has a tooth mark here, or a ding there, or scratches here, or there's a name on the side. Sometimes pens have nothing wrong with them. They're entirely brand new and never been used, and those weren't the pens I was selling. I was selling pens that had been used, and there was always something, even if it was a tiny little flaw. This pen nib doesn't really work, and I'll figure out why in a second. What's wrong with this one? This is a more modern nib than belongs in this pen. Maybe it'll fit in this one. Might even be more modern than this pen, but this one has a very rounded nib, so this will be good for lefty. This will be good for artists. It doesn't have a huge amount of flexibility. There's a little bit of muscle power you have to use to make it do that, but it's good for some people. Some people like that muscle power, so I'm going to set that in the pen and round department. Okay, let's see. That's missing a nib. Try some more of these ones that have nibs in them. Okay, what's wrong with this one? This looks like it's very, very firm. There is only a slight amount of give that you get when you apply pressure. Purple. This is a Waterman Purple, which was their color coding for the rigid nib. And I don't know, I don't have a spot for those yet. I should just make a spot. Watermans that are trying to be Schaefer pens, that's what it should say on the box. Okay, now what's wrong with this pen? This is a really nice pen for a calligrapher as well as maybe even an artist. Let's see if there's any flaw here. I think there is no crack. There is no crack. So this is, where does this belong? In the calligraphy department or the artist department? I think I'm going to put this with the artists just because I'm in that kind of a mood today. This one, this is for a calligrapher. It's really, really fine and very springy, and I think the fineness has a little tiny bit of a scratchiness to it that I think an artist would find annoying. But a calligrapher would not, because they're often used to steel nibs, and steel nibs are scratchy. So this will go with the calligraphy ones. It's not a stub. The stubs are at this end. Pointed pens are at the other end. If I have enough stubs, I'll give them a tray all of their own. I found a really nice stub here the other day, which now is in the hands of a friend of mine. And had I paid more attention, I would have kept that in my keeper bin, because it was really, in addition to being a stub, it was flexible and very sharp on the side. But now this pen is, I don't know if you can see it. Well, you can, I think. There's some waviness to the nib, and that I can try to straighten out a little bit more. It is, if I do straighten it out, it will be for an artist. It'll be good for drawing. Now, you've heard me say that any calligrapher and any artist can use any pen. So these are just suggested uses. I know that there will be a time when I will look at these other pens and say, okay, well, this nib can certainly go. Ah, there are my nibs. I'm looking for this little tray right here. That you know, they can be traded off. Something I think is for an artist might make a calligrapher happy, and vice versa. But it's nice for me to be able to at least understand a dozen pens in a broad way. This would be good for both, but I'm putting it in the artist bin for the moment because of the roundness of the nib, the fact that the nib can be pushed backwards. This one, I bet, is going to be, I'll put in the calligraphy pile, just because I have a feeling it's really, really sharp. And it might be scratchy. It's not very flexible. but it's really, this is a calligrapher one. Some calligrapher will like this. Okay. This one. This is really, this is a tight flex, and again, this is one that I think a calligrapher might feel more at home with than a drawer. Even if a drawer likes using really, really fine lines, this could work for both. This could make two people happy, but I'm gonna put it in the calligraphy department. Now, if I do get an artist and I show them these, the artist pens, and they say, "Gee, I really want something that's finer, thinner, 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 thinner. I like making really thin lines," then I'm going to say, "Okay, fine. Let's go to the calligraphy pens." And if a calligrapher says, I often have to use really bumpy paper, and I want to have a pen that's smoother and isn't going to spatter ink, then I say, well, let's look at some of these artist pens. This pen is again one of those ones that can straddle both camps, because it's good for calligraphy, nice springy nib. So I think I'm going to leave it there for now. Calligraphy. Oops. This feels sharp and pointy, but makes a line that's a lot thicker than I expected it to be. So I think this is going to be put in with the artist ones. This nib is very bumpy, wavy. It's been tried to be straightened, and I can try to straighten it further, but let's just first see what kind of nib it has. Very rounded. A lefty could use this one. It's really, really smooth. Even though it looks like it went through a gun and hit a wall and was straightened out, it's really a nice nib. Rounded goes there. And when I try to straighten it out, I may ruin it. Oh, this is a really, really fine nib. Is this a purple? This probably will say firm. It says firm. I still have to figure out what to do with the ones that say firm, because I just don't know what to do with them. But I had a spot for them. Firm. Where did they go? There was another one, right? Purple. Yep, firm. Where are they going to go? Last legs. I'll put them with the last legs. I need to find people that like those kind of nibs, because they're the hardest ones for me to try to sell, because they don't have the pizzazz, the obvious pizzazz of a stub nib or a calligraphy nib. This is another one that's firm. And this is an accountant nib. Now the accountant nibs, which I like, They are firm a little bit. They're very fine, and they don't flex very much. But their fineness is really, really neat. So I'm going to leave that there. I could probably find a pen I want to put that in. I used to not like them, but I changed my opinion once upon a time. Here, it'll go in this pen. Though some account nibs are a little bit broader than I like this one. This doesn't have as fine a fine as I want. So that's going to go in with my hard nibs, because that's essentially what that one is. That's just hard. Aha! Why is this so loose in here? In the years that these pens have been kicking around, either in my ownership or in collections or in pen repair shops, often sections and things are put in the wrong pens, and this one looks like this should not be set up the way it is. Oh, there, this is tight. Let's see what this is. This is another firm pen, I bet. Oh, it isn't. Well, I'm wrong. Wow. This will make a drawer happy if I can make it not skip. Isn't cracked, is it? Don't tell me it's cracked. It is. This has another little crack going off that size. That's why it's flexible. It would not be. If you look at this, what happens is one tine flexes out, the other one sort of stays put, but the other one is weakened by that crack. But this pen will go in the last legs thing, and these are the pens that are going to die with their boots on. I'm going to use them until I can't, which might mean when they break, or I may see if I can get a friend of mine to fix them for me. I know he can fix them for me, but it might just be too much money for me to do it. In which case I'll trade him. You know, he'll fix them for himself. When you fix pens for yourself, you don't really count the hours that you spend. But if you fix it for someone else, then you really do have to pay attention to how much time you're spending on it, especially if you're trying to do it as a business, which many of us have to do. This is a nice nib. It doesn't. This pen wants a different kind of a nib in it. Now, I'm putting these nibs in pens, but they're not going to stay here. They're not going to stay in the pens I'm putting them in. Or rarely will they have to stay. They will probably end up going into a different pen. I'm putting them in these pens just so I can try them out and have clients try them out. And, okay, you like that nib? Great. Now that I know that you like that nib, I know what you like, what you want, and now we'll find a barrel to put it in. And some of the pens, like this nib belongs in this barrel, but I may not have a cap to go with this pen. So if someone wants this nib, I'll put it in a different holder. It'll be the correct holder, but it will be a different one. I think this is good for drawing. Doe jumper. I was trying out this pen. Does this one fit in here? This is a weird size. It really doesn't, it's very loose in these pens. That's a Moore pen. What's that doing here? Doesn't belong there. Here's a original price tag on this one, $4.25. This cost in 1920 something or other. Some people would pay a lot of money for this pen just because it has that price sticker on it, but don't tell anyone. But when I have a pen that has a price sticker on, chances are I get rid of it. The price sticker. There's one price sticker I don't want to get rid of, though. It's on a dual-fold yellow senior pen that has a beautiful flexible nib in it, and the price of the pen is $7 when it was new, and I'll keep that there. It's not noticeable. It's on the blind cap, so it's not, you don't really see it. Okay, that doesn't belong there. Am I getting anything done here? Am I actually making any sort of progress? Okay, this is a firm one. What the hell is up with this one? This almost feels like a stub. Very rounded. I guess I'll call it a stub. Not really a stub, but I'll call it that. God, why don't I have these pens sacked and ready to go? Why do I still have them in my... This is a pen that would make either a calligrapher or a artist happy. I'm going to put it in with the artist. It's not just the fine isn't fine enough to really make a calligrapher happy. This is another nib that looks like it had been damaged and straightened. I may be able to make it a little bit better looking. Leave that there. This is a number 5 size pen, but it looks like it has a number 2 size nib in it. There is such a thing as a 52X. It's 52 number 2 size nib and a number 5 size barrel. So maybe that's what that section is for. That particular relatively rare pen. Okay, this is a very rounded nib. Good for a lefty. Goes over there. Well, I'm not sure I'm getting anything done here. I'm moving one huge pile of pens into 3 almost as huge pile of pens. This is going to make a drawer happy, not a calligrapher. This is going to make, this is another firm pen. That's also scratchy. And that's about the worst you can get, is a firm, scratchy pen. This is an accountant nib, and which I've learned to like, but maybe it needs to be tweaked a bit because the tines aren't quite lined up. So this, my tweaking worked here. That's better. So put that there. Did I try this one? This doesn't belong on that pen. Try it in this one. Nice and rubbery. This will make it. This will be great for a lefty or a artist. Very wet nib. And no, it's a warranted nib. It's not a Waterman. So I'm going to take it out of this Waterman. Come on. I've got other pens that can go in. Another good one for an artist. This pen also is missing a clip. Now, I have slip-on clips that both artists and calligraphers don't mind. They're not collectors. They're not using these things. They're using these things as tools, so I'll put a nice clip on this. This is an artist pen, drawing. Well, I'm making some headway. I just need to keep these things forever in these drawers, these trays. I cannot move them out. Now what the heck is this? 56, 55, 56. 56. There's a friend of mine looking for a 56. Maybe this will be for him. Is this a number 6 nib, or is this a 100-year nib? Emblem pen nib. Kind of the same thing. So I'll set this aside. That'll be, tell him I have that. It's missing a clip. Aha! This is very firm. Says it right there, firm. And it's scratchy. And the tines are not lined up. Firm goes there. I looked at that one already. I looked at this one already. No, I didn't. Another price sticker on this one. This nib is, I'm predicting, for a calligrapher. It's a very sharp, fine. Yep, calligrapher. This one, very firm, want to say very firm. It has some give. But you have to work at it. That goes in the firm department. It's very fine though. This is another nib, as you can see, that has little undulations in it, and again, that's because of some trauma it received, and I'll see if I can fix that, but that would go, an artist would like that. In fact, what I think I'm going to do, I'm just going to take some of these pens that I have that do have these damaged nibs and draw with them, just to prove to me that, you know, this, even if a nib looks bent and stuff, as long as the nib, the tines are together and it delivers the ink, the, you know, if it's slightly bent, it's not going to change the use of the nib. It may write better before it got bent. Imagine it did. But whenever you try to unbend something that's metal, you're adding more fatigue to it, and I'm kind of the opinion that if it works, just keep it the way it is. Don't screw it up, because you can end up breaking it in your attempts to make it perfect. This one does. Something's wrong with that nib. So fix that. It just doesn't want to draw in a straight line. It keeps wanting to push me in a direction I don't want to go in. Now, what's wrong with this nib? This is a yellow nib. This is a pretty rare pen. This was a ballpoint nib, and they made these for lefties. So it's a very rare, I mean, it's a relatively rare nib. Yellow. This is another really fine one here. Look at how fine that is. Fine and flexible. That's for a calligrapher. This is very firm. Accountant nib, another accountant nib. Oh, I didn't realize I had so many. Goes in there. Aha! Another nice flexible nib. Calligraphy, yes, calligraphy. The fine is really fine. So, calligraphy it goes. Okay, this is another number 5 sized pen, or maybe even a 6. 5. Good for a drawer. But it's also very rounded, so. Aha, this is very sharp. But it's not flexible enough, I don't think, for a calligrapher. But, I don't know, I don't want to put that anywhere. No nib. That goes up with this one. rigid. Rigid nib. Yep, it's rigid, all right. Rigid there. Well, that's a lot of time spent on this one. Sorry about that. God damn it! You know, my desk is a disaster area. Why can't I just put all this away? You know, why can't I do that? Write your answers below.